Hello and welcome back to the Breaking Barriers podcast. I'm Megan,
And I'm Georgia.
and today we are talking about George's story. So, before we get going, I just want to give a quick trigger warning that we discuss some topics during this episode, which includes death, anxiety, and depression. Some listeners may find it distressing, so please take care while you are listening and feel free to skip this episode, and you can always join us again next week. And if you're a younger listener, we recommend sharing this episode with a parent or trusted adult first and check with them before continuing to listen. But other than that, I'm excited for today. And Georgia, you've been on a trip this weekend. Where have you been? Share.
Yep, we haven't talked in a while, so we need to catch up as well. I've been to Prague for Holding Hands, which is a jam organised by Ventigada. It was great. It was so much fun. I went from Friday to Monday, and the event was actually just the Saturday, but they did a few little a small jam on the Friday and on the Sunday as well. But the actual event was just Saturday. And Avantigada, from what I understood, is actually kind of like a Super XXL. Like they organize jams. They're not a team in themselves. They're just like a group that facilitate and organize jams to bring people together and train.
Interesting.
Quite
Yeah, because I
simple.
thought they were a team. And you went with the super guys, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was so nice. It was six of us. We were hoping to be more of us, but yeah, it was six. And we just had so much fun. We were just honestly being idiots all weekend, just having a laugh and
As
train-
always.
yeah, training together, having long chats, just being silly. We found like a weird sculpture with like loads of holes in it, and then we started sliding through the sculpture and some of us got stuck, and then we had to push them back up and just doing stupid stuff like that. Um, and training as well, although I pulled a muscle in my back, so it's just a bit frustrating. And the main thing that triggers it is impact, so real like precisions and pliers. So I tried to like not train and figure out some flow, but I also had to be very careful because I could tell the longer I trained, like the more hours that went past, the more it would build up. So I had to kind of stop as well sometimes. Also had some great chats with people like Josh Dowie from America, Canada, Dom from Australia. Had some great chats with some of the girls like Leah and Julia. There's two Julias and Julie. Alnus and Megan from the States. I hadn't seen Megan in ages, so it was really cool to see and have a great chat with Megan and Mel from the States, and lots of other people that I'm not thinking of right now or forgetting. But it was pretty busy. I didn't count, but if there was probably 100 people there, maybe more.
Yeah, it seemed like quite a, like a high profile event from what I was seeing over Instagram. It seemed like loads of people went, like loads of people that are quite active on Instagram and like are quite well known within the community. So I was quite jealous actually. It seemed like a really cool event and, I'm so glad you had a great time.
It was fun. It was fun. No major injuries. Gio from Italy decided to land on his head at one point. That was
Oh,
interesting. And I
how
think
did
he's
that happen?
okay. I think he's okay. I'm fairly confident he's okay because it was in the like tricks for prizes time, and Super was actually throwing out prizes as well. We asked that, obviously we spoke to the organizers, but we brought a few t-shirts, and so in tricks for prizes they were like, just if you see something that you think sick, go for it. You can decide who you give your t-shirts to. So Gio, who's an amazing athlete from Italy, probably one of the best or the best in Italy, and he did a couple flips over this setup, and the last flip he landed on his head, and luckily it was like wood chip, so it's like super soft. But the setup was this slanted wall, like two slanted walls like this, like a pyramid, and they're made of like quite grippy, almost like sandpaper. And because he landed on his head right on the slanted wall, it just scraped his face. So he had this like massive cut on his face, like not even cut, just like scab all over his face.
Oh,
Um,
God.
I think he didn't land like on his face, but more like on the side of it. And I think, well, I think he's okay because then in the next tricks for prizes he was going again. So I think he's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Is he the guy that I met at Project Underground, or is that a different
No,
guy?
that's Giacomo. Uh,
Right.
Same team.
Ah, got it,
Cousins.
okay. And
Yeah.
is that like that structure, was that purpose built for the event or is that just like in a park?
No, that was purpose built, and I think they carry it around. They take it to. They had it previous years as well, but in different
Sick.
locations.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. And then I met this guy, this kid who's amazing called Roku, and oh my God, Roku, he's like 12 from Japan, and
Oh,
he was
that's cute.
traveling with other people from Japan, and I had a chat with him because I told him I didn't realize who it was initially, and then suddenly it dawned on me, and I was like, I think I follow him, so I looked him up on my phone, and then I went up to him and I was like, I follow you on Instagram, and Megan, like I think I sent him to you actually. He is, or maybe I sent it to the Breaking Barriers Instagram. He is so good. He is so good, especially at flow, and he
That's
loves it.
Japan. They're just all incredible. I don't know what they feed them for breakfast, but oh my God, the Japanese athletes are incredible.
And he loves parkour. He just loves it. And he won a t-shirt, one of our t-shirts. So then on the second day, he like put on the super t-shirt, and we were like, "Oh my God, you're wearing a super t-shirt!" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and he was like posing with his t-shirt, and it was so cool.
Love that.
He was so lovely.
Right, shall we crack on?
Yes. Okay.
Let's do it. Come on. Now's the time. Let's go.
So, I've been telling Megan. Well, we already spoke about this once or twice in the last few months. Where I kind of said to you, I think we were talking about recording our stories, and you were going to record your story, which I felt was really important to tell, and I thought was very important because I felt like it could be relatable to a lot of people, and very inspiring how you came out of it and quite quickly turned things around and now are in a really good place with your training. And I feel like even though on my podcast I've said my story, I always kept one part out. And I've kind of hinted at it a few times, but I've never said the actual what happened. And for a few reasons, partly because I was always scared of how it would come across. I was really scared of criticism. But ultimately, and maybe also I felt like it was a bit self-indulgent and just a lot of doubts, I guess. But ultimately, what I've always known is that some people need to hear it, and that when I was in the depths of it, I would have really benefited from hearing from someone who'd been through it, and who I felt so alone going through it alone that hearing someone who can say to me like, it's going to be okay and you're going to be fine, would have helped so much. I even remember at the time listening to podcasts. In fact, no, not at that time, much, much later, finding podcasts where I kind of felt like they got it, and that really helped me because it validated how I'd felt for so long. So, point being that I know I need to talk about it, it's just a bit scary.
I mean, I think with topics like these, obviously, I know what you're about to say, and I hope that, the listeners are going to enjoy listening to it and take comfort in it. But I think, like we've discussed so many times, if people don't talk about these topics, they're always going to remain like a taboo subject, or like a subject that people feel alone in until people start talking about it. And then you find people, you find community, and you also find comfort in it. So we hope
Yeah.
that today that's what other people can find in this podcast.
Exactly, and everyone's experience of these things are going to be different. Not everyone will relate to my experience, but I think for the people that need it, it can be very helpful, and I hope it will be. So it's about how I got into parkour and where to start. So I have started trying to say it, and so I've been saying like when I started parkour, I was in a really bad place. I was in a dark place mentally, experienced depression. I feel very lucky that I've never had like ongoing depression or like chronic depression. I've only had acute depression, like where it's like triggered by one event and was really intense at the time, but hasn't really come back since. And I was 16. I think I was 16, 15, 16. I was 16 when I started parkour, I think, or maybe I just turned 17. But essentially, I was 16 years old, and I was living in Italy at the time. So I was born in London, but when I was 8, we moved to Italy because my mum's Italian, and I was there for all my schooling years. And I had my first boyfriend. We'd been together for a year, and I got pregnant. And so it was a shock. I was definitely in denial about it. He noticed because he said to me, have you had your period yet? And I was like, no, but I was 16. I was like, no, I'm just waiting for it to come, like for the next period to come. I think, thinking back, I must have just had really irregular periods because I was that young. And so I was like, oh, I'm just waiting for the next period to come. And to be fair, like we had been careful, but yeah, it takes one time, right? And so he was like, okay, when we get off this bus, we're going to go and get a test. And that's when it started to hit me. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And so we went and got this test. I did the test. And immediately it was like very clear that I was pregnant. And yeah, I don't know, thinking back to my reaction to it, I mean, I was so young and I never actually asked him what he thought because I don't know what went through his head. But in my head, it was very clear to me. And I think because of my upbringing, it was very clear to me. It was like, well, I'm not going to keep this because my story isn't to be a teen mum. And I really remember clearly, I'd listened on the radio in London, in England, to stories of teen mums, and I had this really clear vision of what a teen mum was. And it wasn't like a total negative, but it just wasn't my story. And my dad had always spoken quite neutrally or even positively about abortion. So again, I wasn't scared of doing it, and I wasn't scared of his judgment. But when I saw that test, immediately I knew, okay, well, I'm not going to keep it. And so that's something I need to do, to sort, essentially. And I remember also thinking, I can't deal with the emotional side, so I'm just not going to. Like, I'll think about that later. I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to be a bit like a machine, and I'm going to go through this step by step, and then we'll deal with the rest of it later. And it was a protective thing, I guess. So actually, if anything, I mean, I was so young, so I don't even regret this, but I guess I regret not chatting to him and being like, what do you want? Because I actually didn't ask him. I was just like, this is what's going to happen. But he also didn't like say he didn't want that. And then, but I was very stubborn. I was quite a stubborn teenager. And I was like, I'm doing it on my own. Like, I don't need my parents' permission. Like, I know what I want. I know this is the right thing to do, so I'm not going to tell them. So then me and this boyfriend went to a clinic, a sexual health clinic, had a chat with them. I explained what I wanted to do. She could figure out, I think I had a clear idea of when I thought I'd got pregnant. No, I knew my last period, that's right. And so from that, she could tell when I'd got pregnant. Basically, she said to me, we need to hurry up. Like, there's only so long that you can have an abortion. You can't just have one whenever. I can't remember if it was 3 months or 2 months, but she was like, we're right at the end.
24 weeks, right? I'm pretty
I think
sure.
it's much sooner than that, because
Is
24
it?
weeks.
Yeah,
24
don't quote me on that because I'm not too sure, but yeah.
I actually don't have the weeks in front of me, but the date. I don't know when the cutoff is, but 24 is quite far along. So 3 months would be 12 weeks. So it's under 12 weeks for sure. Also, I was in Italy, so some of these facts will be different in the UK. Italy is a very Catholic country, and I think that does have a role to play in my experience of this, because what I'm about to tell you is it went bad from here. This is just the beginning of the story, but it didn't go very well. And I do think it's partly to do because Italy is such a Catholic country that even though abortion is legal, I don't think people are okay with it.
Yeah, I've just searched it up, sorry to interrupt. And so in England, the legal limit is 23 weeks and 6 days of pregnancy. So yeah, just under 24 weeks. And that's from the NHS. So
and is that for any reason? Because if you have a medical issue, you can have an abortion later if the baby is unwell.
Yeah.
Or is not going to develop.
Yeah, after 24 weeks, it says terminations are allowed if there's a severe risk to life and a substantial risk of grave permanent injury to health, or if the baby was born with severe abnormalities.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm not too sure why it's 24 weeks, but that's the reason why it's after what can happen after 24.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm interested to see if it's different in Italy, but yeah. Go on, carry on.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's later than I thought. So, yeah, so again, I was 16, so we're talking like, what are we saying, 15 years ago. So things could have changed in Italy as well. But I decided I wanted to do it on my own without telling my parents. And at the sexual health clinic, they basically immediately were like, so you can do that, but you have to have an appointment with a psychologist. They have to sign you off to say that you are mentally able to make that decision alone, and you also need to tell us that like you absolutely can't tell your parents because it would be a bad thing, like that you literally are unable to tell your parents because of something. And so I said, no, I don't want to tell them, and I will go for this psychology appointment. And they said, okay, we'll follow up with you. We'll give you a call later today to book it in. I never got that call, but I don't know what happened there. But I went home and sat with it and thought, my parents are both reasonable people. I just need to tell them, because if I tell them, it will get done quicker. And I was being told, like, you're on the limit, like you can't wait for it. You kind of need to have this abortion within a week or it's too late.
Yeah, you are right. Italy is up to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then after that, they say about having severe threat to the mother or the baby. So yeah, interesting that it's so different.
Yeah. So I went home, plucked up the courage, told my mum. It was really hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard, and I think she wasn't understanding, and she did the best she could, but it's not that she didn't want me to have an abortion, because like I say, I knew they were both in favor of it. I knew they didn't want me to have a kid, but yeah, it was just very emotional, and I think it was just a lot. And yeah, I just explained to her that I needed her signature, and that I needed my dad's signature. My dad lived in the UK, so we had to like mail him this letter, which he had to sign, and it had to be an original signature. It couldn't be like a fax or something. And then he had to mail it back, and that all had to happen within a week or less than a week, because I also needed to have the abortion. It was chaos, but yeah.
How did you navigate that situation then? Was it literally just like first class post or crazy? That was done in a week. That is impressive, actually.
It had to be. We might have had a bit longer than a week, but like it had to be mailed like really fast. My dad was amazing. I still really remember the phone call with him where my mum told him before, and then I was on the phone with him, and I just remember clear as day. I can hear his voice, and he just said exactly what I needed to hear, which was, first thing he asked me was like, first thing he said was, your mum's told me obviously what's happened. And then he said, I think he said, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I really was, because like I say to you, like I actually was prepared to like shut off emotionally and just get it done. But it was becoming more challenging because my mum was so emotional about it. So obviously there was a lot of emotions now coming up. But I was just really grateful that, I guess, without being mean, but like no one had asked me that. So it was just really nice that he asked. And then the second question he asked me was like, are you sure this is what you want? And again, it was just exactly what I needed to hear, because yes, I was sure, but it was just nice that someone asked. And I knew it meant a lot that he asked, because I knew his opinion, and I knew, even though he's never had to say it out loud, I knew the only thing he wanted really was for me to have an abortion. Like, he didn't want his 16-year-old daughter to become a mum and to kind of be robbed of her childhood as well and her development. So I knew actually he was probably hoping I would say yes, but it was nice that he asked. And he said, okay, then that's what we're going to do. And I was like, cool. That's what you need from a parent. It was just simple. And it was like, yep, okay. And there was no emotion. I'm sure he had a lot of emotions about it, but he kept them to himself, and I really appreciated that. And then it was kind of complicated, because obviously this letter came through. I had to go for various appointments, so I guess they're checking that you're okay as well, like physically inside. So one of the most jarring things that happened to me, and it will stay with me forever, is I went with my mum. At this point, my mum was also fully committed and like took me to all these appointments. And we went to this hospital where they did an ultrasound. Yeah, an ultrasound, like with the gel and stuff. But they did it with like a stick that they put just inside you, just to like, see the baby and check your womb and, I don't know, check things, right? And that's fine. It's not that invasive. But just even at 16, this shocked me. She did this ultrasound, and then she printed off the scan of the baby, I guess, and then handed it to me. And I just thought to myself, I was like, I'm not having this baby, so why are you handing me the scan? So I took it from her hand and turned it upside down so that I couldn't see it, and then like passed it to my mom. And like to this day, I'm like, was she trying to change my mind? But then I'm like, I think that's a bit far-fetched. But like, why are you, like, you do your checks, that's fine, but this is not an appointment about me having a child. Like, this was in the same place where I then had the abortion. So like, I was just really, even at 16, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to see this. Like, this is hard. Then I think I started to realize, like, this is hard as it is. Like, of course, I wish I hadn't got pregnant in the first place. But now that I'm here, like, I have to do this thing. I just have to do it. Like, there isn't really another option. And why are you showing? I mean, I don't think you would have seen a baby. Like, I don't think at 10 weeks, I don't think you see much. But why? I remember actually thinking, I want the first scan I see to be of the baby that I'm going to have. And it was just even at the time, I was like, this is awful. And I just passed it to my mum. And I've never seen it. And actually, I do want to ask my mum if she has it, but I've never seen it. And I assume my mum has a folder somewhere of that period. But we've actually never talked about it since, which is another thing where I'm like, yeah, I kind of wish people had asked. But I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, I wished following something like this, like the weeks and months that followed, I wish people had said like, hey, that thing happened to you, like, are you okay? Because as soon as all of this was over, no one spoke about it ever again. And that's also like, that's why I say about a Catholic country, because I'm like, what's that about? Like, it's quite a big traumatic event. Like, you should check in on someone. But instead it was kind of like, let's pretend it never happened.
I wonder if it's like a time period thing. Do you reckon maybe because this was like early 2000s that it might have been, different if it was to happen today? Like, was it a bit more of a taboo subject back then? Or, like you said, because it was a Catholic country, do you think maybe, I don't
Maybe.
know.
I know me and my sister talk about these things all the time, and like, about taboo and about talking about things, since then my brother passed away and me and my sister are like very open about that. So I think, if you imagine that in the future me and my sister will be parents, like, it will be different. So I guess things have changed a lot. And whereas my mum's experience is, how her parents brought her up, and, bless her, like, she did the best she could. But one of the first things she said to me when I told her I was pregnant was, don't tell anyone. That was one of the first things she said to me. And I didn't, because I was like, well, I'm going to respect my mum, and also I need her help right now. So I didn't tell anyone. I mean, I told my best friends, obviously, but I didn't even tell my brother and sister. And I didn't talk to my sister about the abortion until my brother passed, which he passed in 2018. He passed in 2019. So very end of 2019. So in 2020, because we were being so open about my brother, I said to my sister, by the way, like, I assume you know, but I had an abortion. And she was like, Georgia, I've always known. I knew the day it happened because we could overhear your conversations with mum. Like, we always knew, but we never talked about it. And I'm like, that's crazy. My brother passed away and I never spoke to him about it. Like, that's crazy. And I'm glad I did with my sister. And it wasn't even at that point, it didn't even have to be that deep a conversation. It was just like, why didn't we talk about it? And she was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's kind of weird. But she wasn't worried about me, and she wasn't like, she didn't think abortion was a taboo. And, so it wasn't that deep a conversation. It was just, if anything, it did me a lot of good to get it off my chest and be like, tell her. And I did tell her my experience, and I did tell her how negatively it impacted me. So I know that she knows that, that wasn't the way to do it, and that wasn't the way to treat someone who's going through it. Because the way I experienced it is, look, I wish I hadn't got pregnant. I wish I didn't have to have an abortion. I wish I didn't do it, like, of course. But granted, given that I'm in this situation, and given that abortion is legal, I shouldn't be made to feel guilty about it, and I shouldn't be made to feel all this taboo about it. Like, it should be like, okay, this is shit. You shouldn't, you should know better, or you should have had better education on contraception. And now you're in this situation. This is what we're going to do. Don't let it happen again, but also it's okay. Like, you're going to be okay. And also asking, are you okay? How do you feel about it? Instead, I felt like a lot of weight was put on me around, like, guilt and grief and shame. Yeah, a lot of shame around it. So anyway, I had that ultrasound experience, and then the abortion had to be like a full-blown, like, you're put to sleep, like full anesthetic. So whilst you can take the morning after pill, and you can even take pills that are not the morning after pill, but even a few days later, you can only do those things very early on, like if you realise very quickly. Because I was much further down, I had to have a full anesthetic, and I was put to sleep. I still remember things like being on the operating table, and I'm pretty sure they didn't tie me up. They put my legs in, I think they're called stirrups, like they put your legs on these like things, these like stilts, right? So your legs are up. And I'm lying there thinking like, okay, here we go. Like, this is fucking weird, but here we go. And they had the radio on with music, and they were singing along to the music.
No.
And I was like, this is kind of funny. Like, I'm kind of glad they are, because I'm like, wow, that is how I wanted people to be, is like, this is just another day in the office.
Normal, yeah. Like, it'd be a normal experience. And I guess, I mean, hopefully that brought you a bit of comfort in the moment, I guess. As much as you were probably thinking, like, oh my God, this is so weird. At least, people were acting normal, and people hadn't been acting normal. So it was probably a nice change, I guess, when you needed it.
It was, and then you fall asleep. Then that's it. They'd put the anaesthetic in, I was asleep. Next thing I remember, I woke up being pushed back to the room. It was a shared room with like 6 or 7 other people, all having an abortion. Weird experience. Like, we're all having an abortion, and the nurses were coming in picking who's next and stuff. And my mum was there, and my boyfriend, who was now my ex-boyfriend, because we'd broken up over this. Not over this, but like, yeah, I guess it was coming to an end anyway. It wasn't working anyway, and this was just, I don't know, I can't remember the exact details, but I think I just realised, like, okay, I need to be on my own, and I need to look after myself. And yeah, I just didn't feel fully that we were aligned, in not so much in the decision, but just in the way he dealt with, definitely in the way he dealt with it. I don't really want to go into the detail, but he did speak to a lot of people without telling me, and I was obviously in quite a vulnerable position, and I just felt like he didn't really get it, and he didn't get that I was going through a lot. So in the end, I decided that I needed to look after myself. He was very upset, but he showed up on the day and held my hand and was there for me, and I really appreciated that. And then, yeah, like I say, the operation, it is definitely invasive, but it isn't so bad. Like, I wasn't like in pain or recovering afterwards. It's more the mental scars. And I remember kind of trying to carry on with life, but also feeling like no one cared. And it feels so self-indulgent to say that, but just you just feel quite, you've just been hit by a bus. You're like, what the hell just happened? And no one afterwards asked me how I was doing. And I realised that later, that actually that's what I needed. I needed someone to just indulge in it for a moment, and just sit with me and talk about it, because I didn't know what the hell to think. Instead, life just carried on, and the only way I know that I wasn't okay was 6 months later. I came back from a holiday in Barcelona with some girlfriends, and we were 17, I think, by this point, and or coming up to 17. It was a summer holiday that we went on together, and I said to my best friend, I was like, we went to Barcelona a few weeks ago, and she said, yeah, and I was like, I don't really remember much about it. Like, I know that we went there, and I know that we did this, and this, but I just can't remember like how I felt, or like I just have a really weird sense of it, and like can't really remember a lot of it. She was like, Georgia, you've been out of it for like 6 months. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you've not been yourself. And then I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't. And I'd just been really numb. Like, I felt nothing. I didn't feel happiness, I didn't feel sadness. I didn't give a shit about anything. I was a teenager, and I was drinking a lot, and just didn't care. Wasn't looking after myself. I'd gained weight. I just wasn't happy. And now I understand that it was depression, essentially. And that I just felt so low that I didn't feel anything. I'm glad she said it. I wish she'd said something earlier, because 6 months is a long time. But, I guess when you're watching someone go through it, you don't really... And we were all 17. Like, she just didn't know what to say. But I'm glad she said it, because then I kind of started to realise it. And weirdly, at the same time, or weirdly, unrelated, but at the same time, I started to train parkour. And a friend had said to me, like, go to this class, why don't you give it a go? And I was, like I say, so bored. didn't care about anything, that I was just really just shrugged my shoulders and was like, yeah, why not? And then I just went. I really didn't think much of it. I was like, something a bit different, and I really don't know what to do with myself, so I'll go. And that class, not to be over dramatic, but for those 2 hours, it was outdoors. I remember doing like cat leaps and vaults and step vaults and like basic stuff, but kind of getting over climbing over walls and just like using my body. And for those 2 hours, I didn't think about it. And it was such a relief, because for 6 months, all I could think about every day was that I'd had an abortion. I just couldn't get it out of my head. I thought about it all day, every day. This is why I felt like no one got it, or I felt so alone, just because it was just on my mind all the time. And yeah, and obviously everyone else was busy living their lives, quite rightly. But for those 2 hours, I didn't think about it, and it was such a relief. And that's actually the main reason I went back. It was fun. I had fun, and it was challenging. But I felt happy. I felt good. I felt okay for once in these 6 months. And so I went back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And obviously there's more to it, and I do parkour now for other reasons. But it was just, it came at the right time, and it just provided this sense of relief that I just really needed. And I felt seen. I felt like my coaches at the time got it. They knew something was up. They didn't ask, and they were just there for me. They were like making sure I always finished the challenge I was working on, or that I always got something out of it, or, you know, that they were there, that they would come over and be with me while I was breaking a challenge. They pushed me to do more push-ups and to get stronger physically. Like, they saw me and they wanted me to get stronger. They didn't need to know what the details were, but they knew I wanted to feel stronger physically and mentally.
That's amazing. And like, it's good that, you know, maybe even if you didn't tell your coaches like directly that something was up or something had happened, like for them to have that kind of intuition, and like regardless of being a good coach, I guess that just shows good humans as well, like sort of knowing who you're coaching and recognizing if something feels a little bit off. And especially, you'd come to the class with something being off, and you know they didn't know you prior, so I guess it's also amazing that they recognized even during that you came to them with an issue at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was one conversation my coach had with me, and I can't remember what he said, but I remember thinking, like, I feel like he knows, or he knows something. He might not know what, but he knows I've been through something because of what he was saying. So I do think he had this, like, he understood that I was a bit, like, something was challenging. And like lots of people, everyone has their story, everyone has something that challenges them. I know a lot of women that have gone through abortion, not a lot of women. I know of a friend who's gone through an abortion, and it wasn't a big deal for her, but she went through an abortion in her 30s, and she was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it can be like that. But as a 17-year-old or 16-year-old even, and with this sort of quite emotional response from a parent and this sense of shame, I think the biggest mistake was telling me not to tell anyone, because I wasn't going to go and tell loads of people, but it was the fact that it was like, don't tell people. That put shame on it that I think was unnecessary.
Yeah, you didn't have an option. I think it's the option that makes it, you know, better, because you might not have wanted to tell anyone, but immediately that barrier is put straight in front of you. So even if you wanted to, you then couldn't. So I guess, yeah, keeping it open and honest and, you know, nice is the best way to move.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think the things that I was reflecting on it before this call, the things that really helped me and that I then actually utilised, not to compare, but when my brother passed away, was talking. So I talk quite a lot about my brother. I talk about grief. I talk about my experience with grief with my wonderful flatmate, Catherine. Sometimes I say to her, yeah, grief came, you know, like, I can't think of the words, but like, grief came up like this today. I don't say it like that, but like, I'll say like, oh, I thought about this today, or like, I had this thought about, I don't know, there's so many things to do with grief, like the fact that like my brother would now be 28. Like, that's really weird to think about. Obviously, I never saw him as 28. Like, I'll just say it out loud. And I know if you don't know me, if it's a stranger, it's kind of a weird thing to do. But with your close friends, like, if they're really good friends, you can do that. And they don't think, oh, she's being a bit dark or she's being a bit heavy. No, Catherine just gets it. And lots of my friends just get it. They're just like, okay, she just needs to talk about him. And it's important to talk about him. And I think that would have helped with the abortion. The reason it was on my mind all the time is because I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And I think it would have sped up my recovery, my sort of getting over it, for want of another word, if I'd been able to talk about it. And I'm really glad that with my brother I was, because although, you will never get over the loss of a sibling, but it's made me much calmer, much able to talk about it, much more, okay, this is my experience, this is what's happened, and yeah, just better. Well, I'm in a good place, and I think it's from talking about it. And there's one other thing, it's on the tip of my tongue. I was trying to think this morning, what was the two things? I think talking about both the grief and talking, and how that feels. And the second part is talking about my brother, not in a sad way. Like, I bring my brother up all the time. I was telling some friends in the airport that, like, whenever we'd sit in a restaurant, he'd always, like, you'd sit down and he'd grab the salt and pour it in his hands and just lick his hand. And it was just something he always did. It was like, eat salt when he's waiting for his food. And I don't
Interesting.
know if he was deficient in salt. I think he just liked the flavour. But he just, when you're a kid and you're bored and you're just sat in a restaurant waiting for the menus or waiting for your food, and he'd always and if there was bread, he'd grab the bread. When they put bread, in Italy, they always put bread on the table, and he'd grab a piece of bread and just cover it in salt and then eat that. But, like, that was just a very my brother thing to do. And I think just saying it without it being a sad thing, it's not like, oh yeah, it's a sad thing, he's not here anymore. It's like, no, it's just a story about my brother. And I said, tell stories about my sister, who's still alive. I want to tell stories about my brother because that's how I keep him alive. I keep memories alive, but also it's the only way that he exists in my life, because I'm not creating new memories with him. So yeah, I think talking is really important. Yeah. So yeah, that is how I got into parkour.
Sorry, there's just a big pause there, and I think you were waiting for me to say something, but I was quite happy just listening. I actually don't have anything to say for once. I was quite happy just sitting with the story, so I apologise for the long pause, guys.
No, it's also fine. I just didn't know where to go next. But yeah, I guess just to finish that story, the point is, if you have gone through something like that, like an abortion, and you felt quite alone, just know that you're not alone. You're not the only person who's gone through that. Any feeling you're feeling is valid, and I hope you have had support around you. But also, if you haven't, it's okay to start talking about it. It's okay to reach out to people, because once I have started talking about it, people are very understanding. And there have been a few people I've spoken to about the abortion who weren't understanding. And that's okay too, but they're just not your people to talk to about it, and you have to try and move on from that. But I guess my point is, like, if you're in the depths of it, of feeling really low, of feeling depressed, of feeling shame and guilt around something that's happened to you, it can get better. I do think asking for help is important, but it can get better. And there is a sort of light at the end of the tunnel. There is another version of life ahead of you. And it can be great. It can be amazing. I mean, I'm in a really happy place now. It's been 15 years since the abortion, but obviously a lot of other shit has happened since then. And whilst with everything, like, I don't wish it on anyone, but I think in some ways it has made me more resilient, because it's like, okay, I know I can come back from hard things. I know I can come back from really, really shitty situations. Doesn't mean they're not hard in the moment, but yeah, you can get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, 15 years have passed since then, and I think, let's move on to the next 15 years, because we laugh all the time, because every time I talk to Georgia, I'll just find out that she lived on the moon for 6 months, or, she, like, visited God knows where and lived all over different countries, different places in the UK. So let's move on to that. So next, you wanted to talk about your South America trip. Do you want to tell us about
that? So this morning I told Megan that I'd been to South America for 3 months and trained with lots of people out there, and she was like, what? How is there more? And I don't know. I guess, like, I don't know. I don't really think about it, but I guess I say yes to things and do stuff, and I'm really glad I did, because yeah, South America trip was an amazing experience. So I'd been doing lots of short trips. I'd been traveling a bit to, like, Greece and Athens, and a lot for parkour, like going to events and then maybe staying on a bit after. That was like during uni. I went to Sussex Uni in Brighton, and then after uni, I got a job straight away in TV. I worked as a researcher for ITV News, making short documentaries with them, or helping out as a runner and runner first, which is where you just, like, doing odd jobs, getting coffees, logging files, doing whatever is needed. And then it became a researcher. So like fact checking, looking for locations to shoot stuff, looking for good guests to have on the documentary, stuff like that. And after a year and a half there, I was doing more and more parkour, and I was in London at this point. And I just suddenly had this realization that I loved training. And I looked at my boss in the newsroom and was like, do I want to be her? And I wasn't sure. And I wanted more movement in my life, because ultimately working in TV, you're behind a desk a lot and everyone goes to the pub after. And I felt like I had to go to the pub to like make friends and network. And actually, you know, you're more likely to progress if you're well connected and have, you know, a tight knit group of friends at work and all this stuff. And I just didn't really feel like this was the life I wanted. But I was so scared to become a personal trainer, because I didn't see myself as a parkour coach yet, because I was still such a beginner at parkour. But I was like, a personal trainer, I think just the way my brain worked, I was like, I think I can understand anatomy and physiology. I think I could coach someone through the sort of basic movement skills. And then that in turn will help their parkour, and it'll help my parkour, and it will make me more connected to movement and ultimately working in a job that is movement based, that I'm on my feet and not sat behind a desk. I was so scared to do it because my dad's an academic. You know, he studied at Oxford University. He'd encouraged me to go to uni and get a degree, and now I'm saying I want to be a personal trainer. And there was shame again around being a personal trainer. So I was like, I actually couldn't tell him, but what I could tell him is I'm going to take a break because I hadn't had a gap year. I'm going to go to South America for 3 months to learn Spanish. That is going to help my TV career because I'll speak another language. And he kind of, I don't know, I guess I know my dad, and I was like, he understood that. He was like, okay with that. And I was like, not that I needed his permission, but it was just like, he didn't, you know, challenge me on that. And so I did it. I booked 3 months in South America alone because I had this sense of like wanting to do more solo trips. I'd done a solo trip to Greece recently, and in the nicest possible way, I love my friends, but I also felt like a lot of my friends weren't into movement and weren't into training, and they're friends from school and from uni, and I didn't have as many friends who were into like training. And I wanted to be able to train as much as I wanted and kind of decide what I wanted to do myself and not have to accommodate someone else. And so I did it. So I flew to Santiago, where I had a friend. It was someone I'd hosted in London for like a few nights, maybe like 3 or 4 nights. And she had said to me, if you're ever in Santiago, I'll host you, we'll exchange this, we'll do this exchange. Like, if you're ever in Santiago, let me know. So I had text her saying like, you said you'd host me, like, can I actually come? And she was like, yeah, of course. So then I went and I actually stayed 3 weeks. I stayed in Santiago, which is the capital of Chile, for 3 weeks because I said to her, look, I'm essentially a white woman traveling around South America alone. I think I need to know some Spanish. She was like, yeah. So I booked in for classes. So every morning I'd go to this school and have Spanish lessons. And then the afternoon I had free time, maybe went and did some parkour, met all her friends who did parkour, and then stayed with her family. So it was like mum, dad, my friend was the oldest, and then she had a younger brother. Oh, actually, maybe she had an older brother and younger sister. And a massive dog. She had this huge dog, looked like a German Shepherd or something. All in this cute little house in Santiago. And me. And I stayed there for 3 weeks. And her parents didn't speak any English, so at dinner time we spoke Spanish. And it was great.
Wow. And you got on all right and you understood? Or that's impressive.
I know basic Spanish.
Yeah.
I wouldn't understand, but it was good because I kept practicing. I speak Italian fluently, so that helped, but still, a lot of words are different. Also, Spanish and South American Spanish are slightly different. So I know, for example, I don't know why I'm thinking about avocado right now, but avocado, in one of them, maybe in Spanish, it's aguacate, I think. But in Santiago, I'm pretty sure in South America, it wasn't. It was palta. So there is also differences in their Spanish as well. But yeah, it was good. I wanted to know enough that if someone was trying to rip me off or, take advantage of me, I could pick up, like, that something was off. And then from there, I flew all the way down to Patagonia, to the south, the very, very south, because my plan was to go to the south and then make my way back up. Chile is obviously like a really thin strip of a country. And so in Patagonia, I was hosted by a friend of this girl that I was staying with, and he hosted me, and we went and trained parkour together in this like freezing cold. Like, Patagonia is cold. Even like any time of year, it's cold. It's the last thing before Antarctica, so it's cold. But we did a bit of training in these like kind of like just went around a few different spots in his town, which was called like Punta Arenas, I think, or Puerto Navales. I forget. They're both down there. In one of those, I was staying with him. Then I went hiking in like the beautiful mountains of Patagonia, and he didn't come for that. I went off separately. And then slowly, I made my way back up through the country. I did parkour with a girl in Chiloé, which is an island. Again, she hosted me. Again, a friend of that girl in Santiago really helped me out. So she put me in contact with people. So I did parkour with this girl and stayed in her house. She was a vet in this island on this island called Chiloé. I'm trying to think if and I also trained with another family in a place called Valparaiso, which is like 1 hour from Santiago. It's a port, and it's a city where a lot of the buildings are covered in graffiti, like big graffitis, like proper murals. And so it's famous for its murals. And he and his wonderful family hosted me. It was like him and his wife. They had a 10-year-old and a newborn. And me, and they just gave me I thought I'd be on the sofa. They were like, no, here's a room for you. Like, they were so welcoming. They always cooked lunch and dinner for me, even if I was like, one day I was out just wandering and exploring the town, and then I came back and she'd kept some lunch aside for me, and like just really warm, welcoming people. And with him we trained every day, and I think definitely with his brother, and once with his sister, and they had a parkour park in their town as well. And it was so cool. Like, it was such a great experience. From Chile, I then went to Brazil because I had a friend from uni in Brazil who'd gone back to live in Brazil. She was Brazilian. And so then went to Rio and Sao Paulo, and I definitely trained in Rio. I went to a famous spot of coloured walls. You'll have seen videos maybe, but there's like this spot which every wall is a different colour. Went there and used Facebook. At the time, we had Instagram, but it wasn't as big. So I remember using Facebook to like message people that were training, and you could kind of search like parkour in Rio, and then like you'd find Facebook groups and stuff. So I messaged this guy lovely guy, met up with him, trained with him a few times, and he would then bring a few people from the community, and but it would always be like one session here, one session there, and I never like got to know them super well. And then in Sao Paulo, did I train with someone? I don't think so, but I can't remember. No, I don't think I trained in Sao Paulo. And then the end of my trip was in Uruguay, because I'd met a guy and we got on very well.
Oh, did you now?
Yeah. We had a summer fling, and he was lovely, and he lived in Uruguay. So I met him in Chile, and he was like, yeah, come visit. So then I spent 2 weeks in Uruguay, in Montevideo, and in a place on the beach called Cabo Polonio, which is an amazing place. Cabo Polonio is a town that has no electricity. So they have like power banks and generators to like charge your phone, but they have no lighting. There isn't light bulbs. There aren't lights. And in the daytime, and it's all kind of shack. Well, Cabo Polonio, half of it is shacks, and very like, even our hostel was like shacks, like literally just like bits of wood put up to make a bedroom. And it's all beach. You're on a beach the whole time. And then the other half of Cabo Polonio is like the rich Ibiza type people with massive villas. But yeah, so there is that.
Where is that a country or is that a city?
Uruguay is a country.
Oh yeah. So it's in Uruguay.
In Uruguay, yeah. And Cabo
Just remind me, I don't know whether anybody listening to this did GCSE geography, but there's this one picture, I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's of Brazil, I think, and it's like slums on one side and like rich on the other side, but it's literally like a line, like slum and then the balcony of like a rich place. It's just like such an image in my head.
Yeah.
And it
sounds like Brazil. Brazil is like that. And Brazil, you have to be careful to not go in the favelas, which is the poor bits. You could see them when you're on like Copacabana, the main beach in Rio, or Ipanema, where they meet. There's like this big rock, and you can stand on this rock, and you can look up at the back of the city, and there's this hill, and you can just see the favelas because they're all like quite colourful buildings. You can just tell they're shacks, and they're kind of separate. When I was in Rio, I was in the more modern bit. But yeah, Uruguay. This place, Cabo Polonio, yeah, so no electricity, which means that in the daylight it's fine. You're on a beach, having a wonderful time, eating some food, drinking, sitting on the beach. And then at night time, all the restaurants are lit by candlelight. It's so cool.
Sick. That is sick.
And what it means is you can see the Milky Way. So we went onto the beach at night
Stop.
and lay down, and because there's no light pollution, you just see the kind of like, you know, the sheer, I don't know what you call it, sheer, the like it's just like kind of milky, I guess, like that classic image.
The whoosh.
Yeah, the whoosh, exactly. That is actually the word I was using. Yeah, the whoosh of like kind of almost cloudy, and a bit of color, like a bit of blue or purple, and
Sick.
beautiful. Not like the aurora borealis, not like the northern lights. It's just the Milky Way. You can just see itself, I guess.
That's
Um,
so cool.
it was cool, and yeah. So yeah, the cool thing about the South America trip was overall I felt safe. I was very sensible. Like when I was traveling on my own, because there were lots of cities that I haven't mentioned where I was like on my own. I just didn't stay out late. I didn't, you know, between 8 and 10 p.m. I'd be walking back to my hostel. Hostels are generally safe, you know, you've got other travelers there, and so I wasn't stupid about it. There was one time in Santiago where I had dinner with some parkour people, and then they were like, "We're walking you home," and I was like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Yeah, we're walking you home," and they
Oh,
walked me
that's
home.
nice. I
Exactly.
guess that's the good thing about being with like local people because they know the score.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I always felt safe. I had one or two encounters with men that were just like a bit unpleasant, where they were like really hitting on me, and it was quite wouldn't take no for an answer. But none of them like violently hurt me or anything like that. But it was just kind of unpleasant. But other than that, and nothing bad happened, luckily. But other than that, generally I felt safe. But I think I was quite smart about it as well. Um, so yeah, that was in 2017, and I was uh numbers. If it was, let's say, 10 years ago, to round it up, I was like 21. So I was probably like 22 at that time. 22, something like that.
Like,
It was cool. It was really cool. I think doing solo trips is really valuable. Um, in principle, things should be only safer, I guess, but also be sensible about it. And yeah, one mistake I made was booking hostels, mixed room hostels. I thought it was no big deal, but now looking back, I'm like, why did I do that? You're a solo traveler as a woman in South America and you're 22. Just book a female only room. They were usually more expensive, female only rooms, but not by a lot. We're still talking cheap. That's the only tip I would give. I would be like, book a female only room, because in one of those hostels is where this older man just harassed me, and I had to go down to reception and like talk to them, and the whole thing was quite unpleasant. But yeah, so, and I was in a mixed dorm. He was in my dorm. So if I went back, that's the one thing I'd do differently, is like book a female only room.
sick. That makes me think, why the hell am I sat in Manchester? Come on, get a move
How I
on.
paid for it. That's a good point. How I paid for it. So I worked for a year and a half for ITV. I was paid a salary. It was, you know, all right, an entry level salary. And I lived at my dad's. And my dad, bless his heart, never charged me for rent, which is very nice of him. But I also think as parents, you should do that. Like, obviously, your child shouldn't take advantage of the situation. But if it's to put money aside so that they can move out, or it's to put money aside so that they can have an amazing life experience like that, you know, he knew I was working hard, and I think I respected his space and I respected his, you know, his time. He didn't charge me rent, so I saved up, and then I think I calculated it, and the trip cost me about $2,000, and it was 3 months.
It's not bad, that really.
Yeah.
Like you could easily spend $2,000 going the Maldives or something for
Yeah.
like 2 days.
I
So,
can't remember if that included flights. Flights would have been under $1,000, but maybe like 700 return flights. But I think including the internal flights, because then I had to book flights to go to Brazil, and you could have done it cheaper, because you could have gone to Chile, and then you don't need a flight to go to Argentina. You could have just gone all through like coaches and stuff. But because I had this friend in Brazil from uni that I really wanted to see her in her hometown, I flew. It's quite far from Chile to Brazil, but that was like unnecessary. That was just my choice. So I could have done it cheaper if I'd just followed like the map and gone into Argentina and then Uruguay and then Brazil from there, and like you can do it cheaper.
sick.
Yeah, it was cool. So then, just to finish, we said we'd talk about me becoming a personal trainer. I've tried to pick out a few key moments. So came back from South America, became a personal trainer, did the course in person, face to face, which takes about 6 weeks. I did level 2, level 3. I'm really glad I did it in person, because I got to like practice things on the gym floor, and like it was a really good experience. And then the tutor of the course asked a couple of us, I think he picked out 2 or 3 people and was like, are you guys actually interested in becoming personal trainers? Are you going to take this on as a career? And we were like, yep. So then he set us up with interviews, which was amazing. And then I got that job straight away, and it was a job in Soho as a personal trainer. Worked there for 2 years. And then, yeah, during that time, my younger brother passed away very suddenly, which was a huge shock. It was a car accident, so it's not something you see coming. And yeah, what to say about that? But I mean, that happened. And for 2 weeks, I think your world is just spinning, and you're just trying to, you don't even know what to think. I remember me and my sister, so I'm the oldest, my brother's in the middle, and then my sister's the youngest. So initially you're just like, me and my sister, it didn't take much. It took like a second to look at each other and just know that like we were going to be okay, but we were most worried about our parents. Because there's this like thing of losing a sibling is obviously awful, but losing a child is, I can't even imagine. So I guess we were just like, are our parents okay? And so yeah, that kind of gave us purpose for those first 2 weeks. But one of the things I just wanted to touch on was, and I spoke to you about it recently, was that I remember training. Even though I felt so weird, I felt out of my body, but I immediately like was waiting for news on what we were going to do. And I'd already agreed to meet up with a friend, Lou, and train. And I still went out and trained with her. And bless her, when I met her and explained what was happening, I think she was not expecting that. And I remember training with her and feeling quite dizzy. I had to stop quite a lot because I felt dizzy. And I wasn't doing anything exceptional. I was actually just moving. Like I was just happy doing like a baby Kong on a wall, or like doing a cartwheel, just moving a bit. And I think it would have been easy to just not train. And it's also okay to do that if that's what you need. But for me, it was this anchor of like, when I go to training, life is normal for a second, because at home, nothing's normal. Like the most wildest thing has happened that you could never have imagined. And everyone's grieving, and everyone's in shock. And actually, when I'd go to training or to train with a friend, then I'm going back to what life was like before for a second, and that was really helpful. I didn't go to classes. When I say training, I went to train with a friend, and I think that was what I needed. Like I needed a friend who knew what was going on, knew that I might have to take a step back sometimes, or take a bit, and actually just knowing that I could stop if I needed, actually made me have a better session. And like I didn't need breaks really, but knowing I was in a comfortable, safe space where like it was okay if I needed to take things slower. I didn't really like break jumps or do stuff like that. I just did some small stuff. And I think that really helped me, because it certainly helped me to get back to training quicker, because obviously I hadn't taken a break. But it also just allowed me to have a break. It felt quite self-indulgent and it felt quite selfish, I'm not going to lie. But it allowed to step away and leave my sister, leave my mum at home while they're going through shit, and be like, I'm going to go out training. Like, yeah, it felt selfish, but I just knew like I needed to do it. And I think everyone knew that everyone needed a break in their own ways. Some people went for a walk. Some people, you needed breaks from just sitting around thinking about it. So actually training was my break. And yeah, I don't know, we need to wrap up this episode. So I don't know what else to add on that really, other than, again, if you're going through something like that, like I said earlier, the things that helped me the most was to be honest about it, to be open about it. And actually one thing that I've had to learn is that there will be times where you bring it up and all you get back is silence, because people don't know what to say. It's happened to me so many times where I'll be like, oh yeah, my brother was really into that, or oh yeah, like this year we're gonna go on holiday to Mexico because we all hate Christmas since my brother died. And then you just get like silence, and you're like, fuck, I said the wrong thing, or like I've made people feel uncomfortable, and then you feel guilty for making people feel uncomfortable. And honestly, all I can say to you is it will happen, and you just have to sit through the awkward silence, or like break the silence by saying something completely different and move on, because sometimes people just don't know what to say, and it's not their fault. But just know that if your friend has lost someone or is going through this kind of grief, they'll bring them up, and it's their way of saying like, it's it's on my mind all the time, and I just want to talk about it. And you don't have to say like, oh, I'm sorry. You don't actually really need to say I'm sorry about that. The kind of best thing you can say is like, tell me more about that. Like, oh, your brother, even just saying like, oh, your brother passed away, I didn't know, allows them to tell the story. And they need that. They need to kind of repeat the story to help process it. So yeah.
Yeah,
Don't,
and I guess.
yeah.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, don't worry about saying the wrong thing. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and I was just going to add in that, if you are the person that is grieving, the thing I take from Georgia's story and from other people that I know that have lost people close to them is there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Like, you can grieve in whatever way you want and whatever way suits you. And, for Georgia, that was going out and training and meeting a friend and talking about it. So you can grieve however you like. There's no pressure, you don't need to feel selfish for grieving in a certain way. So if you take comfort in that, please do.
Yeah. Okay, I finished. Thanks for letting me
You
tell
did
my
great.
story.
You did
I
great.
feel very vulnerable sharing the first part, and I hope people can understand. Like, that is my experience. Abortion is a very controversial topic, and I hope I don't offend anyone. It is what it is. Like, if it was my experience, it was a very long time ago. Yeah, I don't know. I hope people can be kind. But yeah, let's wrap it up because I know also you need to go. Should we just do a very quick fire underrated athlete of the week?
Yes. Let's do very quick underrated athlete. First, I just want to say thank you, Georgia, for sharing your story because I know we've spent weeks talking about it and it was quite a hard thing to do. So you did amazing and I hope people enjoyed listening to this episode. So, after that, my underrated athlete this week is gonna be Lindsay. She is from Preston. Her Instagram is Yin Strength, so that's YIN and then strength. She is a mum of 3. She is so incredibly strong. If I become a mum or just when I grow up, I want to be like Lindsay. She's so strong. She can do muscle ups left, right, and centre. I think she's learning how to planche. She's just incredible. She reminds me of Wonder Woman. So, Lindsay, shout out. You are amazing.
Yeah, she is really stunning. Like, she literally looks like Wonder Woman. And she's so strong. Very inspiring. Mine is Zoe Kern. Now, anyone who's a parkour person probably knows Zoe Kern. But if you don't, you should be following her. Her Instagram is flow_e_Zoe. She's from Germany. She currently lives, I think, somewhere like Freiburg or somewhere. And I'm going to get this wrong. She's a botanist or like she works with plants. She is incredible at parkour. Her videos don't do it justice. You can't tell from her videos. If you see her in person, she's so explosive. She has a huge jump. She's a tiny little person with a very big jump. And she's one of the loveliest persons I've ever worked with and ever trained with. And I noticed that she had 1,800 followers. So I was like, why do not more people follow her? Zoe is amazing. One of the most impressive people I've seen train and one of the loveliest. So if you don't follow Zoe, you should. She's really cool and she makes really cool YouTube edits.
Sick. All right. So that is it for today. You have been listening to the Breaking Barriers podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Breaking Barriers Podcast _ and follow our own coaching accounts at Strength with G and at Megpal Fitness. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you found it useful and very inspiring, because I know I have, then please make sure you follow us on Spotify, leave us a 5-star review, and share this with somebody else who you think will also be inspired and also find comfort in this episode. And that's it. We will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.